Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today is Friday the 18th of February 2022 and we're going to jump in and get on with one of these last surahs between 50 and 114, the end of the Qur'an. But before we do that, well, what we're going to do is we're going to showcase, I hope, reader.qur'anite.com, because this is such a good resource. I want to use this opportunity to show people how they can use it as well as look at this surah. But my work is found in printed format and you can get it in, let's see which button this is, this one I think, in the Qur'an, A Complete Revelation, which you can, I'm not here to push the book, but you can buy it in hard copy. It's laid out in parallel text. It's very easy to navigate and all of that, and you have all of the content in it in one place. However, you don't have to buy that. That's not what this is about. You can access it on the reader, which is what we're going to look at now, and also you can download it in PDF and print it off. But I do recommend having a copy of it somewhere, especially as things change moving forward and everything is so malleable. So that was one point. Now what we're going to do is look at Surah 101. I'm just going to close this down. And as I say, we're going to look using reader.qur'anite.com. Now, if we just change to this, as you can see, as you'll be able to see, what you'll find is all of the notes which are at the back of the book are here, and you can access them just by pressing these buttons, these little buttons here, which makes it all very useful. On the other hand, though, you do have to bear in mind that the internet is being modified. We've been through the Wild West stage where everything was basically allowed, and now we're into cancel culture. So it's just a matter of time before, I get cancelled. That's quite obvious. So when that happens, then this will probably disappear. But in the meantime, if you just look here, for example, every verse, if you just click on these buttons, you've got Arabic grammar. You can copy the Arabic verse, copy the English verse, copy both, copy link. And what I want to show you is that any verse, you do this. If you go to Arabic, grammar, click on that, what drops down, you have the word, you have the grammatical form, you have the root, and all of the rest of it. And just by clicking on these, you can get to all the information that you might want about each part of the verse. You can also get to dictionaries immediately. Just by clicking on dictionaries, bang, you go straight to the dictionary, and it uses a resource which means that you can just pull up all of the definitions for a particular. It's taking a long time because the program that I'm using for some reason sort of seems to cancel out the internet whenever you use it. If you just use it at home, it will be quick. And here you are, you've got a whole range of dictionaries. Anyway, the reason that it's flashing is something to do with the program that I'm using. It's nothing to do with the actual site. So that's what it does. And it would have been so great if this had existed when I was doing my initial stage of research, but it didn't. So there you are. So now we'll just read through the surah and then get into some of the details of it. The calamity. What is the calamity, and what will convey to thee what the calamity is? The day men will be as moths dispersed, and the mountains as wool fluffed up. Then as for him whose balances are heavy, he is in a pleasing life. And as for him whose balances are light, his embrace is an abyss. And what will convey to thee what it is? A scorching fire. Just going to go through this bit by bit. Now, the first part, the calamity. What is the calamity, and what will convey to thee what the calamity is? Now, this convention and what will convey to thee. We find this multiple times, especially in this segment between 50 and 114. And what it means is that the recipient of the Qur'an, in some antagonism or antithesis to the this huge extraneous literature which was created between 100 and 150, 200 years after his death, he didn't know what this was. And this convention is, and what will convey to thee what, X, Y, or Z is. And then the definition comes. This is part of my methodology. I mean, there are several components to it. Pantextual analysis, which is something which I talk about a lot. But there's also something called Quranic definitions. The Qur'an will tell you what certain things mean. And this is an example of it. And what will convey to thee what the calamity is, or whatever it is. And this happens multiple times. So it's a convention. Like, you don't know what this is. Now I'm going to tell you. That's what this does. So it gives you the term, the calamity, and what is the calamity, and what will convey to thee what the calamity is. So here it comes. And this is the definition. The day men will be as moths dispersed, and the mountains as wool fluffed up. So that's what the calamity is. Are we in the calamity now? No, we're not, but we're promised this thing. Then as for him whose balances are heavy, he is in a pleasing life. And as for him whose balances are light, his embrace is an abyss. And what will convey to thee what it is? A scorching fire. You see how it works? It's not rocket science. Once you understand the basic conventions within this book, it serves as its own definition. Okay, in a number of cases. Just a few points about this. Then as for him whose balances are heavy, he is in a pleasing life. Now, if you look how people are living today, and sure, there have been evil people in former times, but just look around you now, especially if you've got a few years behind you. It's I think much harder for young people under 30, because they've grown up in this insanity, and it is insanity. And you only really have to indoctrinate one generation. In fact, what you need to do is indoctrinate the teachers. And the teachers now today, I'm not saying there aren't a few well-meaning and well-intentioned people who become teachers, but I think that profession tends to spit those people out pretty quickly, the good ones. I mean, if you look at what's happened to teachers now, they're quite happily indoctrinated, because they're indoctrinated themselves into this insanity, and now they're indoctrinating the children into it. Those children are going to be brought up with this as the new normal, with the the kind of sexual depravity and moral relativism, and it's not just nuts, and I disagree with it. It's objectively insane. And I was just had brought to mind 2 Timothy chapter 3 from the Apostle Paul, and I think this sort of puts some meat on the bones. And this know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. This is solipsism. I talk about this a lot in this channel. And if you look what's happened in the atomization of our society now, men are really, truly lovers of their own selves. And men, if you're under 30, you will need this explaining to you. When it says men, it means it in the generic sense of mankind, men. Covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. Now, I really recommend reading the rest of this, because it's a really good sort of summary of what we're living through right now. But the point that I was interested in here was lovers of their own selves, covetous and boasters, proud. And the reason I'm referencing this partly is because here we have, then as for him whose balances are heavy, he is in a pleasing life, and as for him whose balances are light. Now, I think here we're really talking about those whose balances are light. Now, I have made videos and have been supported and criticized, whatever that means, for what I say about men and women. But I've watched a video made by Brother Walid about men in particular at this time. I'm going to sort of tie these threads together. And in it, and I'm going to put a link to it down below, he talks about basically rap culture. Now, the whole rap thing leaves me personally absolutely cold. I mean, wild horses would not induce me to listen to this insultingly rubbish nonsense. I mean, I can't think of anything less interesting musically. It really is indicative of a degraded culture which doesn't respect itself in the slightest. The only thing I think personally that could be less interesting would be to listen to a vacuum cleaner. But that's me. I missed that whole thing. I hear people waxing lyrical about how talented certain rappers are. Anyway, it just makes me laugh. However, the fact is that culture, if you can call it that, this barbarian hogwash, has affected an entire generation of men. And what it's done really is given them the idea that, well, being precisely this, lover of your own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemous, and so on, is a form of masculinity. And certainly in my discussion about believing men and also about what's happened to women recently, I think what Brother Walid has done is it fills a kind of space there, because the opposite of being, well, put it this way, it's certainly true that men have been emasculated in this culture, and what's been given to them is a parody of masculinity, this sort of ape-like monkeyness posing around, talking. Basically, I can't understand most of what they're talking about, and it is just simply a litany of their own boasting and empty-headedness. But the real point of this is that actual masculinity isn't measured in this way. It's measured in another way. It's measured in being able to maintain one's own line, no matter what one gets thrown at oneself, and to hold on to what actually has value. And anyway, I'm not going to steal Brother Walid's thunder, but I will, as I say, put a link down below, and you can watch it, because he really breaks this down in a methodical and beneficial way. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because here we say, as for him whose balances are heavy. Now, whose balances really are heavy? Are they those who strut around like lobotomized monkeys, shouting about their prowess, or is it not? Now, if that genuinely, is the definition of someone whose balances are heavy, then okay, knock yourself out following it. But not in my book. Also, in whatever area, it doesn't have to be as something as retarded. From my point of view, is that vanity of any kind. I mean, you see writers and so on as they reach the end, or politicians, say for example. I mean, vanity isn't the preserve of this type of degraded retardedness. It can happen at any level. The point really, which I think what Brother Walid hits so well, is that this has been mainlined into the minds of the young men of today, and they confuse this with masculinity when it is actually anything but. It's a parody of masculinity. For men should be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters. And that's really what this is, just boasting, proud, blasphemous, etc. Anyway, that's 2 Timothy 3. You can read that at your own pleasure. Then as for him whose balances are heavy, he is in a pleasing life. And as for him whose balances are light, his embrace is an abyss. And what will convey to thee what it is? A scorching fire. And the day of judgment is that to which we are all inevitably going. If you really think that following these people that are fed to you by MTV, if that's still a thing now, etc., then I would advise you to consider that with some care. Anyway, as I say, I'm going to put the link to Brother Waleed's video down below. That's all for this one, and I hope everyone is well. If you're listening to YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.